Hey guys, sorry this video is a little bit later than my usual monthly TBRs, but I've been backpacking for the past like 6 weeks. I was so convinced that I didn't have jet lag and that I was doing fine. Turns out I'm not doing fine. I woke up this morning, did my thing for like 2 hours, decided I would sit on the bed to work. Bad idea, that was my first mistake. And then I woke up 5 hours later. So I just took like a 5-hour nap in the middle of the day. So that is gonna screw me up, I'm so sure. But I guess my body needed it. But anyway, I wanted to film this video and let you know which books I really want to read in May. Last month, I really focused on Japanese and Korean literature because I went to Japan and Korea. I've got some content coming out about that trip, but once I stop napping all day, then I will edit it. I guess I had like one big sleep that I needed that was like in my system, and I just had it. So that's done now, but this is my reading list for this May, and I wanted to tell you about it. First and foremost, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. I have been saying that I want to read this book yesterday, and yesterday. I keep banging on like a broken record saying I can't wait to read this book. It's by Gabrielle Zevin. It's about two people who create a video game together. They met in hospital as children and then eventually rekindle their relationship and decide to, or like friendship, and decide to create a video game together. And I keep saying that I want to read this book. It's almost one of those books that I am anticipating enjoying so much that I've been putting off reading it until the right time, and apparently that time has come because I've started reading it. I'm like 117 pages in, and I'm really enjoying it. The writing style is honestly so readable, so bingeable, and very easy to connect with. I feel like these characters just jump off the page, they feel so real. So this is definitely, so far, looking like it might be worth the hype, and I'm enjoying it. So that's my first read of May. Other books I would like to read this month. We have Elizabeth Strout's Lucy by the Sea. I read O. William by the same author, which is the book before this one. And again, I found it so bingeable and readable. Like the writing style was so fluid. I guess the way that the characters interact and speak to each other and the dialogue just feels so realistic, hyper-realistic almost. It's just so seamless to read. It's one of those books where you forget you're actually reading because it's so smooth. And it's sort of just about this family and their domestic life and the relationships between different family members, specifically Lucy Barton, who is the central protagonist. And I think in this book, they go to the seaside. So her ex-husband invites her to go to the seaside, and in the last book, they've kind of become friends again, they've reconnected, and I think in this book they're going on a kind of another adventure. So I really enjoyed her last book, and so it's been nominated for a lot of awards, and rightly so, and I'm excited to read the next one. And I'm not big on sequels, I'm not big on series, but with this, I'm so excited to read another one of her books featuring those same characters and those same dynamics. So we'll see how I feel about that. The next book that I'd really love to read is They're Going to Love You. This is by Meg Howry. This was recommended by a book club that I follow on Instagram called Bellatrist. They really recommended this book, and that's how it kind of caught my attention. I believe it's about a ballet dancer, and it's set in Greenwich Village, which is where I used to live in New York. And I just think there's something so special and specific about reading a book set in a place you have lived or you're well acquainted with. You can really track the kind of geography of the book and the movements of the characters, and it's so much more immersive when you've lived in that place too, because you can literally imagine yourself walking down those streets. So I'm intrigued by this. A deeply beautiful book. A lot of writers dream of achieving something like this novel where art and life and love all seem to be addressed in a way we haven't read before. That is like the exact description that pulls me into reading a book, and so yeah, I'm very excited by this one. Jami Attenberg describes it on the cover as a perfect book. Can't argue with that. Next up, another New York-based book. We have Olga Dies Dreaming. As I say every time I make a video, I like to read books set in the place that I'm living, and I'm in New York right now, and so that's kind of why I'm excited to read this. Olga and her brother are bold-faced names in their hometown of New York. Her brother Prieto is a popular congressman representing their gentrifying Latinx neighborhood in Brooklyn, while Olga is the wedding planner for Manhattan's power brokers. I think this is going to be an interesting ride around the city, and I'm intrigued. I always love a new insight into what it's like for different communities living in the city, and I don't know if... I don't think I have ever read a Latinx account of New York City. So that is changing this month in May. Before we continue with the rest of the books, I just wanted to let you know that today's video is very, very kindly brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the go-to platform with everything all in one place if you want to build a website or start your online brand. They have literally hundreds of incredible templates which you can use as the perfect starting point before you customize it, make your own, and make something that you have envisioned without having to do all the coding and confusing stuff to get there. They have a built-in blogging feature. They also have amazing analytical tools so you can see what people are enjoying, what people are engaging with, what your audience want to see more of. And then you can get to creating it, and you can spend time creating that valuable content because the template does all the heavy lifting for you. So Squarespace has got everything covered. Its interface is really user-friendly, and I highly, highly recommend. So if that sounds good to you, you can head to squarespace.com right now for a free trial. And then when you're ready to launch your beautiful new website, you can using my code. Use jackinthebooks at squarespace.com/jackinthebooks, and you can get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain, you lucky sausage. Thank you so much to Squarespace for working with me and for your continued support on my channel. I really, really appreciate it. And now, on to the next book. This is The Virgin Suicides, and this is like a modern classic. This, I think, is one of those books that's on like a mandatory reading list. Like, I think everyone should read this book. I say that because I haven't read it yet, and I feel like I should have. You know, there are kind of books that have had an impact on the culture, the canon, the literary landscape. This is one of those books, and so for me, it's a must-read. And the fact that I haven't read it yet is shameful. So that's why I want to read this book. It's called The Virgin Suicides. It's about these 5 sisters in Lisbon, in Portugal, who all kill themselves individually, one by one, over the course of a single year. I think there are these boys who are like watching them and observing this melancholy, and basically they try to piece together why these girls have all killed themselves. And so I really want to read that. That is The Virgin Suicides. Speaking of books that I feel are mandatory reading, this is Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. Now, here's a little story for you. So I posted a TikTok of like, you know those like this or that filters? So it has like the 2 books above your head and you do it in like a bracket. It was like classic books. And this book came up alongside Jane Eyre. And in the video that I'm filming, I'm like, oh, well, I haven't read Invisible Man yet, although I really want to and I've heard great things. So on this one, I'm gonna have to go with Jane Eyre. Some weirdo stitched my video and just took that little bit out of context of me picking Jane Eyre over this book and was like, you're like whitewashing the canon. How have you done a literature degree and you didn't read that book? Like all you read is white books. And it was just like the weirdest thing because it just showed me how people will try and humiliate you on TikTok without knowing anything about you, you know? Because reading diverse fiction has always been such a priority of mine and something that I talk about so much on my channel. And then this person who obviously didn't know anything about me was making these like huge claims. I know I haven't read this book, but there's a lot of books I haven't read because I'm like 24 years old and there's a lot of classic books to read. I have a literature degree, but this wasn't on my syllabus. You know, like I didn't decide what the curriculum was. I just had to read the books. And so I've since, after, you know, graduating, been trying to fill the gaps of everything I didn't read on that syllabus. Books like The Virgin Suicides, books like Invisible Man. And it was just such an odd thing to see that, and then the comments that it like provoked. It just was such a strange thing to be like called out for not reading a book and for someone to come to these like dramatic conclusions which were wildly inaccurate. It was just so, it was so odd. So anyway, I had actually bought this book like 2 weeks prior to that because I filmed my Wob haul, which only just went up on my channel but was filmed before I went backpacking. And I actually just bought this book to read this month. So now it's like, I guess I am going to be reading it. And so I hope that TikToker is very happy to see me holding this up. But there's just a gentle reminder that like, what you see in a 15-second TikTok isn't always reality. It's always much more complicated than how it looks. When you see someone like making wild claims about someone else, take it with a pinch of salt. Remember that you're seeing things out of context. It was a big learning experience for me too, to be like, wow, this app can make people draw crazy conclusions and can make people look very foolish, and people can humiliate you very easily by taking something out of context. So anyways, This is Invisible Man. This is a book telling unparalleled truths about the nature of bigotry and its effects on the minds of both victims and perpetrators. It's about the racial divide in America and gives us an entirely new model of what a novel can be. Set in the Deep South and is a journey from there to Harlem. So we have another kind of New York book too. That is Invisible Man. I'm very, very excited to read it, and I'm sure that random TikToker will be very excited to see me reading it too. Next, we have Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder. I've definitely put this in a monthly TBR before, saying I really want to read it and just didn't. It feels like it's always, I mean, even in this haul, I put it like near the end. It's always one of those books where I'm like, if I get around to it, then I'll read it. But it's not been a priority. Maybe because I think it kind of is part of this like new canon of unhinged, I support women's rights, but I also support women's wrongs books, you know? It's about a feral, unholy woman who commits acts of violence, I think. So I've read a couple of similar books, and so I think that's why, although I was excited for this, and the reason I bought this book, I feel like because I've read other stuff, you kind of do get like fatigue when you read similar books, and so it makes like reading more similar books less exciting. But it's been a little while since I read a book like that, so I think I'm going to try and get around to this month. At home full-time with her 2-year-old son, an artist finds she is struggling. She is lonely and exhausted. Her husband, always travelling for work, calls her from faraway hotel rooms. One more toddler bedtime and she fears she might lose her mind. Instead, she starts gaining things, surprising things that happen one night when her child will not sleep. New appetites, new instincts, and from deep within herself, a new voice. That is Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder. Then we have Real Life by Brandon Taylor. This was shortlisted for the 2020 Booker Prize. Almost everything about Wallace is at odds with the Midwestern campus where he is working uneasily towards a biochem degree. An introverted young man from Alabama, black and queer, he enforces a wary distance even within his own circle of friends. But over the course of a late summer weekend, confrontations with colleagues and an unexpected encounter with an ostensibly straight white classmate fracture his defences while exposing long-hidden currents of hostility and desire within their community. I've heard wonderful, amazing things about this book. One of my favourite TikTokers always recommends this, and so I'm like, I really want to read it. It's very high up on my list. You know when someone has very similar taste to you? I can't remember this guy's name, but I follow him on TikTok, and every time he recommends something, I'm like, that immediately I need to own, and so here we are. And then the final book on my reading list this month is The Trial by Franz Kafka. I love Kafka's writing. I've actually only read The Metamorphosis, and so I need to read another one of his books, I think. It was written in 1914, but not published until 1925, a year after Kafka's death. It is the terrifying tale of Joseph K., a respectable bank officer who is suddenly and inexplicably arrested and must defend himself against a charge about which he can get no information. Whether read as an existential tale, a parable, or a prophecy of the excesses of modern bureaucracy, wedded to the madness of totalitarianism, The Trial has resonated with chilling truth for generations of readers. Well, I'm going to be the next generation of readers to feel totally mind-blown by this book, I think. So, very excited about that book, and very excited about this entire haul. These books I'm very intrigued by, and we'll have reviews for you very, very, very soon. This month, in fact. So you can keep an eye on my Goodreads, on my Instagram, on my TikTok, on this channel too, to see me work my way through these books, and I will chat to you very, very soon. All the best, stay in touch, have a wonderful day, and it's great to be back. There's going to be a lot more content from me now that I'm back from my travels, and I can't wait to share it with you, so bye-bye!